Hello and welcome back to XGR. I'm Quaid, and today you're going to be listening to a podcast, or really just an informal conversation about DICE and Battlefield and what we want from the next Battlefield. I hope this video possibly reaches DICE and a large audience because this is how we feel, and I think this is how many feel about Battlefield. Anyways, the conversation is between myself, Matt, and our friend Austin, who we refer to as Esky. But anyway, guys, I'll let you to it.
So, in recent weeks, DICE has announced that they are finishing both their live services on 2017's Star Wars Battlefront 2 and DICE's Battlefield 5, which released in the fall of 2018.
Yep.
Moving all production towards their next Battlefield title, which is Battlefield 6, as we know it right now. And it's slated to come out between April of 2021 and December of 2021. So, without a doubt, will be released on next-gen hardware.
Well, I'm glad they. I guess I could put it this way: cut their losses on Battlefield 5.
I agree.
And I mean, they're not really cutting losses on Battlefront 2. At least I don't think they are. I thought that
No,
game did pretty well.
they turned it around. They turned
but-
Battlefront 2 around.
I'm glad that they are putting all their eggs in the basket. I think I told you that, Matt, earlier.
Yeah. I agree. They got to double down and just make the next game a good game. They really need to bring the fan base back. They improved Battlefront 2 tremendously, having played it from the beginning to what it is
Battlefront
now.
2 is a great game.
Dude, Battlefront 2
really
is
can't-
night and day between what
Yeah.
it was and what it is now.
I think we can all agree with the Scarif update being the last one. They transitioned Battlefront into what it really should have been the whole time. And it's phenomenal that they were able to do that. Capital Supremacy becoming their major mode, really echoing classic legacy Battlefront 2 elements with it, and providing such a fun, template for, the game really turned around. I think, though,
night and day.
with Battlefield 5, though, there was a lot of speculation that it could go that way as well, following November of 2019's Pacific update. It was very well received. In many online forums, I saw places that had routinely been mocking and critiquing DICE for the entire first year of post-launch. The Pacific update was nothing but praise. It was phenomenal. I can say, after myself having taken a several month break.
The first half of it, of course, because we haven't gotten.
I said November. I didn't say December. Upon first playing it, after taking a several month break from Battlefield 5, I was blown away just by the quality of everything that was in it. The details, the new weapons, the new vehicle customization in terms of specializations, the atmosphere. While it only launched with 2 maps, and what we got was undoubtedly what the game should have first come with, and it was the step in the right direction. It felt like an echo of Battlefield 1's operations, to a lesser extent, mind you, but still felt like it finally captured that Battlefield magic. Quaid, you also played the update. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think, I think you said this actually a little bit ago, is that the game, for a World War II game, it started out not really feeling like a World War II game. We didn't see much of the Americans, and that sucked. And we finally get them now, and we only got a little piece, like half of it. You know, we only got 2 maps. I think we got a third one too, didn't we, Eski?
Yes. Later
Yeah.
on, we got Wake Island, and
Yeah.
with Chapter 6, we got another new map.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so we did get another one.
Yes, we
So
did.
we got 4, okay.
We got 4 maps for the Pacific in total, and it is unknown if we will be getting another one with Chapter 7. I don't believe we will.
Mm-hmm.
I think Chapter
Also,
7...
So don't they have a second half, though,
Of what?
of the Pacific? Like, what's the last thing that DICE is giving us for this game?
I thought it was the second half.
I believe it is a small content update. They have not stated explicitly what's in it.
So it really is
It's
done after that, then.
Yes, it's a small update scheduled for the summer. I think they could blow fans away with it, but I don't think it will be anywhere on the level of the Scarif update for Battlefront 2. This, I think, will be minor. The most confirmed thing I know is they're recoloring the British and German uniforms to fit thematically much better. Basically changing them to more brown for the British and more gray for the Germans, while also not changing the models, mostly just the coloration. And you're right, Quaid. I did state back when we played the game on numerous occasions, this was the least World War II feeling World War II shooter. Regardless of the fact that the Americans weren't in it, it could have been British versus Germans, but there were almost no British versus German battles that were actually fought that we played. The Netherlands and Norway, both, I could be wrong, I might not know enough about the history, but the Netherlands, I believe, did not have British troops there in those battles. The Norway campaign, I don't believe, had that big of battles. The battles in France that we saw, there were no French troops there, no Norwegian, no Danish, and in Africa,
not to intervene,
everything just feels out of place with the game. You know,
as someone who hasn't even played a quarter of the time you guys have, it's just, to me, it doesn't seem right. How do you not
create a World War II game without the Americans?
The
versus
Americans are just such a
the Nazis.
Like, dude, they could have just implemented Battlefield 1943, the arcade game for the 360, just taken those 3 maps and put it in the game, and that would make a world of difference. Add the Americans, the Japanese. I mean,
you know,
this isn't
funny
new
too?
territory for Battlefield.
It really,
This is
and
nothing
honestly,
new.
that's what they did with the Pacific, is that we got Iwo Jima, not the same one from 1943.
No.
I think in many ways this Iwo Jima is better. The 1943 one was fun. I did very much enjoy it, but it was honestly that Iwo Jima map was
This
the
one
best
brought it to a
map
new
from.
scale.
This was the best Battlefield 5 map in Iwo Jima. And I will state, you can make a great World War II game if they just wanted the British, but they did. Their design was all over the place because they wanted early war battles, specifically ones mostly fought in 1940, which had no. We didn't even see any of the major battles there. We did not see the Dunkirk evacuation. We did not see the Battle of El Alamein.
Yeah.
Neither of which are 2 of England's most noticeable, accomplishments.
Dunkirk would have been amazing,
especially with
for the
the
campaign.
movie
Yeah,
recently.
I know.
You already got people now informed about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, tapping into what you said, it almost seems like the game never knew what it wanted to be. It almost
didn't.
seems like it
It's
got
like a
pulled
Mod
like
Podge.
it got pulled in so many different directions, and it's just like they never really got their finger on what kind of game they wanted it to be. Because with the whole, even gameplay wise, when they went into the update where they're now changing time to kill, like they didn't know what
That was
they
a
wanted
big
that
mistake.
game to be.
There's so many bad steps. And you know another thing we can't forget? Can't forget about their Battle Royale, which was a complete,
Oh god, disaster.
utter, disgusting.
I think we
piece
can
of-
forget about it because DICE clearly has, with no updates to that mode since
absolutely.
launch.
Yeah.
The fact that it was, I think it's safe to say, it was dead on arrival. Because do you remember what also came out right around the time of that? And this just goes, I think this is
Was it
ironic.
Apex?
Apex Legends.
Yeah.
A free Battle Royale launched around the same time as Battlefield 5's Firestorm. The reason I say this is quite ironic is because EA notoriously launched Titanfall 2 the week after Battlefield 1 came out, and
Just
before the
killing
new
themselves.
They keep
before
biting
the
themselves
new
in the butt.
yeah. It seems that I don't know if the publisher really understands how big of a mistake this is. I don't think we should spend too much time
Do you think maybe
criticizing EA. I think that it just happens
So,
plenty enough.
do
But
you do you think because DICE the same team that made Battlefield 5 did Battlefront 2, right?
no. There was a
Oh,
number of
but it is DICE, right?
It is DICE, but I believe it is different internal teams. I recognize some of the names across them,
Yeah.
though.
So I wonder if they were spread too thin. You know what I mean? Like, was their team divided up so they didn't have as much,
I think
knowledge?
I think we
and
can see that.
opinion?
The question with that is, though, is if we look at maybe the development team did not have enough. They definitely didn't have enough time. Both you and I, Matt, I'm not sure if you played Battlefield 5 on launch. Me and Quaid did, and it was
I did.
notoriously disaster.
It was. I played very minimal because of that. It was just brutal.
It was extremely bug filled. One of the most noticeable ones, I believe, was hitting max rank of a class and not being given your max rank rewards for that class. I know many people didn't unlock the final weapon in a class because they'd left the match or didn't trigger this. I think I had that at an earlier level, which was quite frustrating to unlock gear and not actually get it. There was honestly too many bugs to count. But the reason I stayed with the game is because I felt that in the beta that I played, the gunplay was, I felt actually quite good and quite fun to use, which I was very surprised about. I felt Battlefield 5's marketing was terrible across the board, and
terrible.
the beta gunplay. If there's one thing that 5 has done, I feel like did very well. It honestly, combat felt enjoyable. I think that was something that
was
Battlefield
fun.
5
I think
had
my
down.
It was
biggest,
a little more loose, like
my
Battlefield 4.
biggest gripe right off the rip, I wanted to say earlier with bugs is, for me, a big thing with shooters, and I don't think it's a personal preference, but is audio. And I think sound has a lot to do with immersion in video games, especially everyone nowadays is using headphones. And I mean, I know it was pretty widespread that a lot of the audio in Battlefield 5's early days was not exactly perfect, from what I remember. Mind you, I didn't play too much. I remember the audio not being the best. A lot of cutouts. And I remember complaining about that quite frequently when playing it. And it's tough because these are things that aren't new. Like Battlefield, almost, not to bring up another company, but Bethesda, you play the Fallouts, and they have similar styles of glitches. So, I was there for the Battlefield 4 glitches, and a lot of them, I don't want to say they resemble a lot of the things that were wrong with Battlefield 5 at launch, but something I always notice in games is audio, and it's just, it's brutal for me when audio goes wrong, because it just takes me out of a game, and then it gets, sometimes you just hear you reload a gun, no noise. I still remember, I'm pretty sure I was firing the first couple bullets, and I wouldn't hear anything.
I think,
with a lot of Battlefield games, you always got bugs when they first come out now, unfortunately.
Of course.
You can't really get around it at this point. It's like, some of them just slip through, and it's just like, how did they let that through?
The issue, I think, more so is there are some bugs that, I think we can forgive. For example, if you see like, there's, the Jeep audio isn't playing when I drive. Okay, that's annoying, but salvageable. If you see a wall's texture doesn't render properly at 200 meters, you're like, okay. Equipment not unlocking, that's game breaking.
bad.
That's a game breaking bug.
Yeah.
You don't
Well, it's annoying, is what it
Mhm.
is.
Back to what you said on audio too, Matt. I felt that coming off of Battlefield 1, uh, Battlefield 1's audio design, I felt was phenomenal. The explosions, weapon sound effects, character banter, and chatter,
Oh,
I think
Battlefield
was
1, dude.
very immersive in what it had.
Hmm.
And I can say a sentiment that was felt early on in Battlefield 1's uh, career was this is a World War II game set in World War One, is how it felt. The tanks, the
Hmm.
planes, the gear, the classes. Everyone's like,
Hmm.
this is, we all felt this will. We felt that World War II is what they're going to do next. We all
Hmm.
assumed it.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
based on Battlefield 1, we honestly had expectations set. You know,
High hopes, I would almost say.
Yeah. Right.
not even just high hopes. The fact that Battlefield 1 launched with multiple maps, multiple armies, and a large arsenal of weapons. Now, we could have, understandably, what was kind of expected is we might not have gotten two major armies at launch. By that I mean the Russians and the Americans. Much like we didn't get the French or the Russians in Battlefield 1, which there was, understandably, some pushback for that on launch because both nations were featured more heavily in the war than the Americans who did get added. I think the reason they were added, though, was to appeal to the American market, which is where a large portion of their demographic is from.
Yep.
But with Battlefield 5, we assumed we'd get multiple nations and multiple fronts. We did get multiple fronts. We got 2 maps per front. Now, I think one thing that we can discuss briefly is Battlefield 5's subpar map design.
Hmm. Yeah.
They are
I.
quite forgettable in many instances,
The,
and unfortunately not extremely reminiscent of any major World War II battlefield. I think a great
Not at all.
comparison is, do you two recall the map Amiens from Battlefield 1?
no.
I wasn't. I do not. But I
It
You'd have
was
to remind me.
It is the urban city map that was British versus Germans. There was train cars, there was the railroad station, there was a giant railroad track, there was
I think
rubble
I
from
actually do.
buildings.
I think
This
I
was a
actually do remember that map.
very famous map from Battlefield 1. Now, the reason I bring up Amiens is this was a city in World War One. In the World War II game, we did not have a single city battlefield in there. The closest we had was I apologize that I won't be able to remember this name for this map. It was the one with the yellow flowers and the clock tower.
Arras.
That small Arras. Thank you. Arras was the closest thing we had to it.
Oh, the massive
Arras,
field.
I'd say Arras
yeah.
is one of the better maps for Battlefield
Well, you know
I
what?
agree.
5.
I do like
I
that
think
map.
of maps that feel World War II-esque, Arras, and I think the German airfield in Africa, Aerodrome,
Yep.
are the 2 most World War II feeling. To
Yeah.
run through Rotterdam. Oh, sorry, we did technically get a destroyed city. I apologize for earlier.
Yeah.
Devastation and
Oh, and
Rotterdam.
Devastation, yes, yeah.
But honestly, Rotterdam had not great fighting in it, honestly.
It was a
It
very
was cool to have the
plain
big
map, very simple.
It felt very simple. We did have a few noticeable structures. It didn't have much character to it. Yes, there was a large
No.
cathedral, but I
A
think
lot
with
of
the
its
lack
maps are
with the lack of vehicles,
I think it's
too.
fair to say, to sum up the maps of Battlefield 5, I think it's fair to say that they're bland. They're just not what the franchise.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
I for sure am not afraid to say I spent most of my time on 3 and 4 and Bad Company 2.
Mhm.
I mean, 3's maps were legendary. I have never spent more time or had more fun on a map other than Operation Metro. That is just, I
Metro.
mean, that for me is Battlefield. That's my childhood.
Sign
is that map.
Crossing.
Oh, Sign Crossing, the amount of battles
Mhm.
us 3 had there. when we were
Mhm.
switching teams and trying to take the C flag from each other. It's just,
Mhm.
for me, they dominated map. I mean,
Gamma
personally,
Van
maybe
Peak.
the sales don't represent it, I don't think. But
The
I would play Battlefield 3
you know I think
in
the
full. Go ahead.
say you know what I think one of the best metaphors for 5 is in comparison to that is
What?
This map's name might not ring a bell to you in Battlefield 5. It was added in a later update. It's called
Mhm.
Operation Underground. It is a map
Mhm.
where
The reimagining of Metro.
it is the reimagining of Operation Metro, and in many ways, it's a map that Metro is iconic. It obviously had its
Yeah.
flaws and whatnot.
Yes.
It survived 2 Battlefield games,
Mhm.
3 and 4,
Mhm.
but for some reason 5 did not capture it. And I
No.
do not, and I think it would take a while to analyze why, but I
Yeah.
think in simplicity, is it the weapons? Maybe. Is it the mechanics? Maybe. I just think it's honestly the map itself, the changes felt awkward. The actual map itself, the layout was just too different, I'd say. Was its biggest flaw by adding the side rooms, by changing these things, and
Mhm.
I think it's a great example
There's
for
a whole.
Battlefield 5. It's taking the classic Battlefield formula,
Mhm.
and I agree, we need change. I
Yeah.
think Battlefield 1 had a lot of positive changes on
Yeah,
the
but
Battlefield
here, let
genre
me
in
ask you
terms of the
this.
grandiose
Mhm.
scheme.
Mhm.
Uh, Battlefield 5 went back to 4-man squads, went back to older map
Mhm.
designs, and honestly didn't struggle with its identity. Look at the attrition mechanic.
Yeah.
They said they wanted to keep you undersupplied on weapons and supplies, but very quickly on they changed it so that you spawn always with one med kit on you so you can heal because you didn't have that at launch. You spawn almost all weapons got additional magazines because you didn't have enough ammo for combat, and basically it's like why what was this attrition mechanic which was made it so that you were supposed to scavenge and build and fortify came to fortifications lasted no time before they were being destroyed. Ammo was, easy to come by, and health equally so.
How
Mhm.
much of these flaws do you attribute to a team that is? I mean, so do you think there was an impact on the bombshell release of Battlefront 2? Do you think that impacted the progress they were able to make on Battlefield?
In what way? Do you think Battlefront 2's
I mean, Quaid
failure to
touched on
launch?
earlier, maybe being spread thin. I mean, Battlefront 2 came out what, a year, maybe
I
9 months
think,
before
in
Battlefield?
hindsight, what we've taken a look at, if we consider Battlefield 5's March update, I consider that the launch of Battlefield 5 truly, because that's when the co-op modes were in, the Battle Royale was in, the Last Tiger story was in, and Panzer Storm was in. Now, if we add all that together, does that, and let's say that we give them the benefit of the doubt, the problem with Battlefield 5 was not one of bugs and not one of time, unfortunately. It was a failure of design. It
Mhm.
was in an effort to tell stories of unknown battles, they lost most of their player base. I think
Mhm.
again, to hark back to Battlefield 1 did tell, most people were unfamiliar with World War One battles. The initial battles at launch though, you know, might be somewhat unknown to people, but they're actually quite famous. So, even in that essence, we did get some like more famous elements. Battlefield 5 launched with no famous battles. As I stated previously, no famous British ones. We did get some famous ones of smaller nations, but the only battles that they were pretty much German complete victories that we saw. Rotterdam was bombed to a crater. Norway was taken over quickly. The Blitzkrieg swept through France. But you didn't feel, and the Germans defeated the British in the desert. But did you feel any of that there? Did you
Mhm.
feel this narrative? Did you feel these elements coming through?
You know,
Or did it just feel like a haphazard? It was a location that was in the war with the British Army wearing American gear set in 1940 using weapons from 1945.
they tried to tell so many different stories, but it was just like those stories didn't break the surface. It was just like, okay, here's these simple stories. You don't get really attached to the characters. You don't get a long, develop attachment to these characters, because you're doing like little scenes throughout the war,
Yeah.
And if you look at like Battlefield 3 or oh god, I mean like Bad Company, dude,
Bad Company 2.
Haggard, come on,
Bad
you
Company
can't forget
2
those guys.
Yeah.
And Battlefield 3 had a great story for
Oh, amazing.
decent.
Four's story I think was okay. I wouldn't
Yeah.
call
Three
it
had a
good.
three had a really cool story. It was a cool,
Yeah.
grounded story.
Absolutely.
I think three had a good story as well. I think it obviously
Mm-hmm.
had failures, but I think it did a great job at capturing
Mm-hmm.
its battlefield elements. I think four's failure in its story was because they were trying to copy Call of Duty
Mm-hmm.
in many ways. Because I believe with Battlefield 3 and COD, what you noticed after those games, I believe Modern Warfare 3 was the game that came out alongside Battlefield 3, if I'm not wrong. And as we know, Modern Warfare's, Call of Duty's big thing was that you played a boots on the ground soldier and a special forces soldier throughout all of its history. Again, we're not trying to focus too much on COD, but you played as SAS and American ground troops, and you did that. Even in COD 4, you did that. In Modern Warfare 2, you were American troops and special forces again. World at War was boots on the ground, With Modern Warfare 3, we saw you play as Delta Force and X-Task Force 141. So two special forces units. And Battlefield 4, who did we play as? I believe we were Marine Force Recon Special Forces.
Mm-hmm.
Who... oh no, I think we were MARSOC. And I'm not entirely sure. It was not very memorable.
Yeah.
And if we look at it, it was the, special forces became the thing to be in campaigns. Your campaign always had to be some sort of operator.
Who doesn't want to play as a special
And that way
force?
they could pack, a ton of action in, some crazy missions,
Of course.
So it makes a little more sense.
In essence, yes, but one of the most memorable missions in Battlefield 3 was?
Jumping out of the plane.
It was, I'd say, actually, you play as a
The
guy
Russians.
sitting in a tank driving in the desert.
Oh yeah, that was sick.
With
That was great.
It was.
I think Battlefield 3's campaign was amazing. Looking back, I mean, do you guys remember how exciting it was? We get our first taste of Battlefield 3 with the gameplay they released of the mission in the Middle East.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And it's just,
mission
I
in
remember
Iraq.
watching that as a kid, and then playing that mission just captured the magic of like watching it. Like watching it was just equally as exciting as playing it. It was our first look at the new engine. And do you guys remember when you're running by, you fire the rocket launcher to take out the sniper? The whole sign comes down. I mean, it was just that
It
was
was a
just
very
one
good
piece of that.
opening.
That was one piece of that game, but it still sticks with me today. And to be honest with you guys, it's a struggle for me to even remember much of Battlefield 4, and don't even get me started on Battlefield 1 or 5. I'm not
I
a
think-
fan of the way they do those campaigns. I prefer sticking with a set of characters. I prefer being able to like Battlefield Bad Company 1 and 2. You're sticking with the same squad. You have time to grow and enjoy these characters and flesh them out more, rather than doing scenes from different parts of the wars.
I was saying earlier, it's hard to compare. To me, it's almost too difficult to compare the Bad Company games to 3 and 4 because of how different they are. It uses the same engine, and the destruction is like their big thing. But you got different characters, a different art style.
The motifs, the designs, the mechanics are all so.
They're almost two separate games. To be fair, like you said, they're very close.
Mm-hmm. And
One thing-
Bad Company actually is kind of unique from all the bad Battlefield games, to be honest. Because even Modern Combat, that was more like 3 and 4 than Bad Company was to 3 and 4.
Absolutely. And Battlefield Bad Company kind of went, I don't want to call it cartoony, but it did go in a more cartoony style, if that's the correct word.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
more
Modern
stylized.
Combat went from being
Yes.
more realistic to, if you told me Battlefield Bad Company if you just showed me those games compared to Modern Combat and then 3 and 4, I would not think they were one of the same franchise. They're all great in their own respect by far,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't look at them as one of the same franchise.
Battlefield Bad Company 1 and 2 definitely more stylized. If you look
Yeah.
at the animations, the weapon models, the character designs, they definitely did that, which is why they still hold up quite well, even visually to this day.
Yeah.
Obviously not groundbreaking, but still look good, play well, you know? And I think it was a great effort and great accomplishment that they did that. We saw a lot more vibrant colors as well. And going from 2 to 3, obviously the blue tint, more saturation, more realism, it was fine. And I think what we can look at now, and this was something me and Quaid had discussed previously, is I think one problem that the Battlefield series has is that we get a major breakout game, then we get the next one, which is okay, and then another breakout. Bad Company 2, I will admit, is sort of the, not really follows this rule as much, because Bad Company 2
follow
sequel,
any of the Battlefield stuff.
Yeah, but if we look at 3 to 4, 4, I can still agree, is a very good game, but I don't think it was as good as 3. And if we look as well as reception and sales numbers, 3's did better than 4.
Yeah.
And then I think Hardline, in hindsight, Hardline got a bad rap. I think it was fun, but not a great Battlefield game. It would have done better if it just didn't have the name Battlefield in it.
Yeah, I was literally
absolutely,
just about to say
100%.
it's just like one of those things with Assassin's
I
Creed,
don't-
which is what I say. It's you take it out of the franchise, and it's a whole new ball game because you put the Battlefield label on it, and now it's being compared to the its.
I don't even like to compare those anymore because Hardline's just such a different concept than the rest of Battlefield.
It was very different on launch too. It actually worked with less bugs.
That's true. That is true.
But what I was meaning to say is 4 took a ton of the same assets from 3 and used them together, but it didn't innovate enough on 3 to really be like a wow factor. And then we get a hiatus, and we go to 1. Brand new maps, brand new weapons, brand new setting, very well received, sold very well, did a great job, and then we get the follow-up to it, and 4 at least was did well on its own. It was a good game. 5 not so much, but we see again that recycling. But but I mentioned this to Quaid too, is the recycling of things from a modern game to a modern game is much more acceptable than for period pieces, because we saw a large number of World War I guns used in Battlefield 5, which is a World War II game, in which we wanted to see World War II guns finally. But the World War I guns that we saw were not really the ones that people wanted to see either. So in Battlefield, I made the comparison. In Battlefield 3, you use an M16A4. In Battlefield 4, you use an M16. If the game set one's in like 2012 and the other one's in 2016, is anyone really going to complain too much? No. But weapon innovations from 1914 to 1939 were vast. And I think another thing that people were quite upset about is the weapons that were ported from Battlefield 1, again, were not the ones people wanted. We did not get a great example was, by the time Battlefield 5 launched, the BAR, the Arasaka, and the Mosin Nagant had all been added to Battlefield 1. And none of those were there on release. However, we did get the Gewehr 95. Was that anyone's particular favorite? No. In terms
I
of
liked it, but
in terms yeah, in the game, and also the weapon didn't play like it did in the previous one. In
Mm-hmm.
Battlefield 1, it was the rapid firing, quick action, on block clip loading sniper. That mechanically was changed to the slowest, highest damage sniper of all of them. So there wasn't really even that consistency in there anymore either. So we got a game that recycled gear, changed it, and didn't even use the popular ones. And we feel this element of, again, they said we'll improve on operations in 5, and they didn't. Operations were undoubtedly worse in Battlefield 5. So I think what we know here now is that the next Battlefield game needs to be a major innovator because 5 was such a failure, and it has to be on a new engine because we're going, well, not a new engine, but at least a new update of Frostbite.
Upgraded for sure.
Because we are going to a new consoles, new power.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest thing looked at is it most likely has to go back to modern for
I agree.
Yeah.
I think a few reasons. One, it's been quite some time, so
Yeah.
they have the ability to jump back.
Mm-hmm.
But I think honestly the biggest one is the due to obviously we've played it. We've played it quite a ton, honestly. It is the biggest shooter right now. It has been a dominant force since 2007, 2008. And it's the powerhouse titan it was again. Even after suffering for a while, because they took some time off from being in modern day. They went to space. They went to the near future. They went back to World War II. But I've avoided saying its name until now. It's Modern Warfare. They want modern combat.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I just think, personally, this is my personal preference. I don't think going back in time was good for either franchise. Yes, Battlefield 1 was a great game. We can't argue that, but I just don't think I'm one for Black Ops. Masterpiece of going back in time. They took an era that no one's done extensively, like Vietnam, and I think Battlefield, in my opinion, is obviously a way big personal opinion. I love Modern Warfare 2, but I would play Battlefield 3 and 4 as those were my favorite games as a kid because I wasn't always the best at Call of Duty, but Battlefield offered a massive open world modern shooter. Open map, just it was, of course that's personal, but that is one thing I've always thought. For me, Battlefield dominates modern era just with the kits, the things you can get. I love the way they did 3 and 4.
Here's what annoys me, and I've said this, I think, to both of you before, is that, like, I understand that, it's an older setting in World War I and World War II. You don't have as many things as in, a modern game, but it just seems like, you have Battlefield 4. It has vehicle customization to an extent. It has good gun customization, a little bit of, customization for your character, in terms of camos and stuff, tons of attachments, all that. And then you go from that, I'm going to skip over Hardline, but then you go, even if you go from Hardline to 1, you see, like, I feel like I'm almost gypped a little bit of a game because, and I understand it's because of the setting, but, like, and I don't know if this is true either, but it seems like it's less work because there's less things that could be in that era. You know what I'm trying to say? So, like, you can't have red dot sights, you can't have laser sights, you can't have suppressors. So there was probably suppressors, but, like, in Battlefield 4, there's a suppressor for, like, almost every gun. You know what I mean? There's attachments for every gun. There's camos you can get for every gun. So to see, especially in Battlefield 5 too, that's an older game. There's less things in it, but
I think I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
there's less things you have to do because theoretically there's just less in terms of even equipment.
And it's like, how can you make a game that has less, and you have to make it in some way up to the standard of Battlefield 4 or 3, or even Bad Company, but there's less, so you really have to innovate or
Let me
make
throw
something
this
be
at
like
you,
the
though.
big.
I will
So-
say, Matt, you go and then I'll go.
There's less, right?
Mm-hmm.
But look at how much information there is in the modern games. Not that there's not a lot of information about the old, World War One, World War Two weapons, but
Yep.
look at how much they can look up an M4A1 and model a gun off of it.
That's
So
true.
much easier than they could find in old school. I mean,
Look at
think
the
about some of the guns that we
yeah.
were talking about from Battlefield One.
the best
so
example
they're-
is the Hellriegel. I believe there's no known copy of it. They had to go off of like 2 pictures.
They're going off of so much less than what we have
That's
with
true.
today's. Not that that's an excuse, but it is
Mhm.
something to keep in mind. The less that there is, they have to do. There's also a lot less information on that. You can
Yeah.
find. I'm sure I could look up right now.
I
an
mean, that's fine,
M4A1
though.
Get full
They can-
specs, full.
Yeah.
But
I
that's what
think-
they're getting paid for. So I mean, that's their job.
I
Mhm.
think
There's still no excuse.
Battlefield 4, I think, is an example of too much and bloating
Mm,
against the game's better self.
I don't know about that.
I think because from what I can recall from interviews I've seen, they were going with Battlefield 1 and they understood like the difficulties with a lot of these is they were able to better define a weapon's role because of these things, because they didn't just need to make it a compensator and whatnot. Now, I would have also personally liked if we got to choose compensator, different grips, different stuff. You can still work with these. I know even, for example, Heroes and Generals is a World War II free-to-play shooter, and they allow you to change at least internal parts, which do change the
that's
weapon
cool.
a bit, so you can do some stuff like that. There is a way to do the customization proper. World War One, I think they did the best that they could, because that is really hard, because that's when weapon customization.
Yeah, it's understandable for World War One,
But-
for sure.
I think for 1, I think it also gets a bit more forgiveness because we look at how many weapons that 4 had, but how many of those guns were in 3? Meaning, how many of them did they have
Sure.
to remake?
Sure.
And 5 doesn't get that excuse because they'd already reused a bunch of weapons.
Yeah.
But I think what I meant by what I said with 4 is a little bit of too much is, if I go play Battlefield 4, I have a ton of weapons to choose from,
Mm-hmm.
but not each one has a ton of character. I can't tell you the difference between the SAR-21 and the AUG that much in terms of gameplay. And if I put on grips, it's true, I can put on 12 grips, but only 4 of them have unique stats.
Right.
The
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
8 are
Whoa.
duplicates of that. Optics is the one thing where I'm like, that is entirely preferential. So that but again, I feel like some games bloat their attachment systems with optics. Look at Modern Warfare again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
touting
But-
their advanced weapon customization, which is great, but it's not that great when you say this gun
Alright.
has 70 attachments
well, let me throw
and it
something
has
at you, though.
25 scopes.
Let me throw
Go
something at
ahead,
you.
Matt.
Battlefield 1. The
Uh-huh.
weapons. You don't think they bloated the weapons by having 3 or 4 variants of each weapon? The experimental, the rifleman, the close. I mean, that was something that bothered me from Battlefield 1.
Like, instead of that,
They
could
all
we just
those were
have it
just
so
the
we
same
can build
guns,
it
just different
ourselves?
stats. Yeah, I prefer.
Much
I
like your
completely understand
M4
what
with
you're
a
saying.
compensator and a laser sight is the same M4, but with attachments. I think on paper it does make it. It did like I can agree with you though. If you pull out the list, it's like look at you have 25 options.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
like
And there's
five.
really
there's
6 different
there's
guns.
and instead it's like
Yeah.
it's like look at here's 18 options. That's 6 guns with 3 attachment options each.
Yeah.
I agree. I meant in terms of the attachments themselves in there, where like you could see like again there was like 20 assault rifles, but some of their differences are like this one has
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
more. This one has 2% less recoil and 1% more fire rate than this
Right.
one does. It's very minute.
I do
think
get
it's-
they're
it
minute.
is.
I think 3 did a better job with their guns because I think they were stuck in a rock and a hard place. You have to add new guns into the game, but you don't want to. But I think that was just a little bit too much. You know what I mean? In some instances where you could add new weapons and change things up, but you didn't need to add so many just so that personality was lost across them. We all play Battlefield. Again, we've all played Battlefield 3. If you play Battlefield 3, can you tell me, and you go through the assaults, let's look at the medic class. I'm not going to pull up a chart. These are what I remember. If you come in here, it's like, okay, I'm going to use either the M16A3, the AK-74, the F2000, the M416, the AN94, the L85, the Scar L, each one feels different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like to a degree. Some of them feel a little similar, but you can. Oh, and the AEK. That's it. Let's look at the three AKs.
Okay.
You play with the AK-74, the AEK, and the AN94.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are AKs. Can you feel the difference between them, though?
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's something that they did phenomenally. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I think they were stuck in a rock and hard place with Battlefield 1. I think Battlefield 5, they didn't have that excuse, because I think, again,
Right.
COD
they
World
could
War
build on
II
it.
took
Yeah,
a lot of
well-
liberties, but they had a lot of attachments in COD World War II, and a lot of those were based actually on real things.
Mhm.
For
I mean,
example,
even World at War. World at War was limited, but still had more.
I
World
was-
at War was.
Battlefield
It's true.
has never been one to stray away from experimental stuff. Again, the Hell Regal was never made.
Mhm.
They Call of Duty World War II had detachable box mags for the M1 Garand, which was something that was tested but never fielded. And it's like, there's an attachment for you. Let us put on, bayonets, flash hiders, scopes, stocks, springs, optics, all these things can be
So-
done. There's a ton of actual things you could have chosen. You didn't have to go. No, it would not have been the same as Battlefield 4 with, like, look at all these, like, put a laser sight, a foregrip, a compensator, a suppressor, that stock plate. No. But you could put on a cheek pad and a flash hider, change your weapon spring, right? You could do these things.
Yeah. Let me
and
let
I-
me ask you this though.
sorry.
Let me ask you this, Esky. So, in the next Battlefield, whatever it is, hopefully modern,
It has
you
to be
rather
modern
have-
or late Cold War.
that's what I was thinking. To be honest,
Near
just
future is
personal,
the farthest
personal,
they'll go for future.
personal
either.
opinion. If it is something in the past, or if it's something futuristic, I probably won't buy the game. And that's
I-
just my
I can give
personal
it
opinion.
40
I-
years before or after 2000. So either if it's the 1960s
Sure.
or the 2040 or up to 2040. I feel like that's close enough either
Sure,
way.
yeah.
But if it's 2143, I feel
Mhm.
like
Here's a
I-
hot
I
take for
don't-
you guys.
Okay.
mhm.
I would love to see a fully fleshed out Battlefield Vietnam. I think
That
they
would be
did
neat.
phenomenal with Vietnam. Bad Company 2.
Imagine,
But-
jets
My-
with napalm.
Oh,
Be
dude.
pretty cool.
I would love. I mean, my personal thing, I wanted to get into it with the going backwards. When you go back in time, I think you're removing a lot of things you can customize. What is one thing people love about Modern Warfare? Gunsmith. And
Yeah.
to your point, Esky, with the 12 grips and only 4 of them have
I
different
think
stats.
Gunsmith
Sure.
is a requirement for the
Well,
next
okay.
Battlefield.
Here,
if it
let
goes
Sure, they
modern.
have four different stats, but it's still a lot of people. I mean, we see it with microtransactions. A lot of people love aesthetics. Even if it
Mhm.
just changes something aesthetically, it's still pleasing to the gamer. Whether
Okay.
it changes stats drastically, but I think when you go to World War II, you're taking away so many things you can do when you're going to games like Modern Warfare. Even some of the
Mhm.
Ghost Recon games, you could build your weapons in the 2 newer ones. I think that
Yeah.
it adds
Alright.
personalization.
Let me
I thi-
let me bring up this question.
Wait,
Here,
can
you
you
know,
go?
you can go first because it's going to be a
I
big
was-
question.
I was gonna say part of the reason World War II I think works for a lot of these games. I think Battlefield 5 Battlefield is one of the perfect things, is because some of the problems that we see in modern games are much better gameplay wise and past, because it's true we do lose a lot of customization, but if we look at, by that I mean you get elements of the things that work so well in gameplay because they were in basis of design. In the past, we had light tanks, medium tanks, heavy tanks, tank destroyers. Planes flew slower than jets do. Weapons were specific in their role. You had submachine guns, rifles, light machine guns. Rocket launchers first came into existence. I think it works as so much in the counter and balance sphere that allows for a lot of that fun play. Whereas modern combat is also fun, but you do have to admit there is a little bit of, there's a jet flying at Mach 5 over point B. By the time you're able to look up at it, it's already at point D. You have a tank with your thermal optics looking, above the hill where you have someone with a SOFLAM ready to guide a shell into a helicopter. You've got an attack helicopter hitting you with Hydra rockets. And all that's fun, but I think it's also fun to simplify it because you then get this rock, paper, scissors of light tank is weak to rockets. Heavy tank beats medium tank. Medium tank's faster than that. Tank destroyer is quick but gets destroyed by other things. You get these sort of rock, paper, scissors balance and fun element, and you can make it arcadey and enjoyable. I think both have their merits, but I think each one you do sacrifice some stuff. And I think customization is one thing that I agree with you, Matt. It does suffer, so you have to balance it by making other things more enjoyable, right? I think that's like a fair point, but that's me.
It's tough for me because I think going backwards, and Quaid, I know you want to ask that question. I'll finish my piece with customizations. I think going backwards, it's like Quaid said there's less. There's just so much less to do. You're not adding as many in-depth attachments. You're not really.
This is why I'm saying we're stuck on weapons a little too much. Is what I mean.
They need to make it so less.
Well, what are you
is
using
more.
though? 99% of the game.
I mean,
You're using a firearm, but I just mean like customize it. Even it's just. I think for me, there's nothing more satisfying than when I finished my M4 on Call of Duty and I could just deck it out to be whatever I want it to be. Whether it has no stock and it has a 10 round SOCOM mag, I can build it to be almost as like a DMR. It's just you can do so much with that one gun, and there's how many guns in that game with that feature. It's just.
Yeah. I think they could have done that, but they didn't. Is their flaw? Can you agree with me on that? So we can move on. Yep. I think they couldn't have gotten it as good as modern, but they could have done more. And I think that's that. Quaid, sorry to keep interrupting you.
Let me ask you this question now. So let's say the next Battlefield is modern. What do you guys want in it? Now let me start with this too, SK, because I want to say this. So we both played Hardline a fair amount, and we both know that it got a gunsmith at some point, and it was pretty good. I thought it was
it was a good step.
It was the first gunsmith we saw on Battlefield,
early.
And I liked it a lot, especially the customizing of the camo that you could do. That I had a heyday with that.
I'm quickly going to look up a little bit of Gunbench real quick.
Yeah,
just
sure.
so I can get a quick refresher.
But I think, you said that Battlefield 4 was a little bloated with the guns, but now what if we had the same amount of guns that Battlefield 4 had at the end of the game, but we had the gunsmith, so we could tweak the gun to the way, that we like it, like how it is in Modern Warfare,
I think
so we can make it unique.
If you look at Modern Warfare, though, they started with less weapons for a reason. It's because they were able to make them more unique.
Right.
And that's what I want from Battlefield.
Well,
the next modern Battlefield is I want them to start with, theoretically, I'm like, give me 6 guns for every class. Let's go back to 3. You can use the M16, the AK-74, the F2000, the M416, the AN-94, and the L-85. We'll say let's choose those 6, I guess. But each one of them has different attachments to it, not to the Modern Warfare levels of, taking like caliber changes and whatnot. Just like, okay, what do I want? Look at a little bit is not as heavily in depth, but a little bit of like Tarkov. Change the stock out, change your barrel, change your rail system, put on your proper optics, put on the kind of magazines you want. You want quick change mags? Do you want slight extended mags? Do you want short magazines? Do you want a laser sight on this? Do you want canted red dots? Do you want your M203 on it? Stuff like that. And I want the guns to feel, I'm fine if there are less guns, which each one feels unique. Because I think a problem with Modern Warfare system is that when you play, there is a general M4 loadout you will most likely see in many instances, which will always happen. But regardless of that fact, if you, me, Matt, John, Nate, and let's say Jacob all played, and it said, hey, everybody use an M4, and we all looked at each other, odds are none of our guns would be identical. That's
Yeah.
what I want, and I think that's the
Yeah.
personality.
Yeah,
If
no,
you
that's
can't,
great.
with, again, side real quick, with older games, you need to balance up less customization with more weapons and newer. Go less guns and let us make them ourselves. Because in Modern Warfare, come on, the match starts, your guy, checks his weapon, and you get to
Hmm.
see that weapon you've built. You're you're just blown away by that fact, and you
Hmm.
feel this element of personalization. And then when you
Hmm.
switch classes after you die, and you find it on the ground, you're like, "Hey, that's my gun. I remember
Yeah.
that."
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's, for sure. Um, I
I think
think,
Matt,
yeah.
would you like to add anything on to that? Because you were just
I just
talking a lot
I
about this.
I think weapon uniqueness is what a lot of people crave, and I agree with what you said. I think I would rather have fewer guns, but with those fewer guns, it's way more. They're unique. I would take 8 fleshed out, unique feeling assault rifles rather than 20 assault rifles that feel the same. But I also think how you can customize. I mean, you can take the
Well, what if
AK-47
though?
in Call of Duty and build an RPD, the AK-74U, which just I agree. I just think having the ability to create something that even if some other people have the same one, because like you said, a lot
Mhm.
of people are going to flock to what is the best variant of the M4.
Something
But
will always shine through to the
yeah,
top.
that's just,
Hmm.
the gaming community. It's just how people
Mhm.
are. Oh, people start wearing riot shields on their back. Oh, that's smart. Let me copy them.
Yeah.
Same thing
Mhm.
with guns.
I.
When people realize what a good combo is for a gun, they're going to copy them. And some people make it their own and start that trend, and some people hop on that trend. But I think what having the ability to just create a unique weapon to you, and
Which.
what's nice is it complements so many different play styles. For me, I was able to actually play pretty good with the 10 round magazines, the SOCOM rounds. A
Hmm.
lot of people
Mhm.
don't like them. They complemented my play style a little bit.
Hmm.
So, what works for some doesn't work for others and vice versa. And I think having the ability to experiment with how you like to build your guns and how you like to play is what gives such a good experience. It
Hmm.
offers just so much more than just a cut and dry. Here's this gun, you can put on a red dot, a grip, and that's it.
Yeah. I think, when we look at Battlefield 4, if you really think about it, dude, that game had a lot of customization, a lot of stuff. Now,
A large number of
if
skins, player,
yes,
weapon,
yeah,
The skins in
vehicles.
and
Battlefield 4 were amazing. There was
yeah,
a lot, dude.
and I hope in this next one they really do take the good aspects of 3 and 4 and really move it into this next game. Customizing of vehicles, and if they could even further add more customization, be great. The more the merrier, honestly. I know I'm sure that's a lot of work for them, but like now that
Well,
they're
they
they're
need.
taking all their teams from Battlefront 2 and from Battlefield 5, and they got a big team now. They need to use that team to their the best ability, because the more the merrier. They can make a modern game, and let's say the trailer doesn't look good, they're still done. They really got to impress us in this next one. And I'm
Honestly, they
this
have
is
to
almost
blow
this
us
is
away
my letter.
right out of the bat.
Yeah, no, yeah.
To
I,
to be frank with you, it's unfortunate, but this isn't exact. Like I've stated this in the past with you, is that this isn't a this game, you know, come out and be good. The problem is that there is no trust that the game that you play at launch, will be the
mhm.
same one you play a month down the line.
Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, DICE has, if Battlefield 5 had gotten a little bit more support and
Mhm.
ended on a bang instead of
Mhm.
a whimper, I think
Yeah.
it maybe would have there'd be more faith.
Mhm.
But I think you guys said they cut their losses with 5. Unfortunately, by
Yes.
doing that, many of the people that played
At-
5 don't have a reason to migrate because
yeah.
they don't see, and because they know that they could fundamentally change the gameplay a month after the game comes out. They
Mhm.
could put a ton of development in things. Battlefield 5's biggest problem was wasted dev time. We saw
Yeah.
they did a ton of research and dev time into the first TTK change, only to revert it. So imagine that tell devs to test, balance, and ensure these weapons are good for this, and it's poorly received. Then you have to change all that stuff. You can't just revert. You have to make it worth something.
Yeah.
Then the co-op mode that was lackluster, no one saw any benefit to. The Battle Royale was not developed by them, but they still had to help with it to a degree, which did not work well. Then the 5v5 mode that just was canceled.
Ugh, yeah.
So they spent a ton of time developing character models, weapons, and maps for this
And it all
mode.
went to nothing. To
Almost-
waste.
I
It was a
think-
waste.
I think 2 of the maps came out.
You know, it's crazy. To
And
see
then
that,
again, another TTK change. More months of testing, more of this. About half of the game's post-launch content was cut or abandoned. So they've shown that they have no care for what they work on after or the product that it starts. So Battlefield 6 could launch amazingly. But if it just launches okay or good, if it isn't a game changer, then it's gonna fall to the wayside because,
absolutely.
no offense, let's take a look at what could potentially be coming up against it. We've got, now there's no, what if another powerhouse of the Call of Duty's back on top?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
What if
For sure.
What if
Oh,
another
Battlefield has
powerhouse?
lost so much momentum.
Yeah. What if they could literally release the Battlefield 3 over again, and it wouldn't
Oh,
be received
God.
as. No, I mean, let's say Battlefield 3 never existed, and they just launched that now. This is Battlefield 6, is what the Battlefield 3 we love. It probably wouldn't even be as loved as much because of how bad 5 was and how strong
Yes.
COD is.
Well, they just hurt
There's
their
a lot of
fans.
lost-
That's what it boils
yeah.
down to. They burned some bridges with fans. It's 100. There's no way. There's no other way to say it.
If this was
me
another
myself,
Star Wars
this-
game, I'd maybe be like, cool, I'll buy it.
Yeah. Sure.
But maybe it's because Disney's backing them and making it so they can't ditch that
True.
game fast.
Well, I mean,
know,
it's Battlefield gave up a lot of territory in the first-person shooter marketplace with the whole fumbling of Battlefield 5. There's no question Call of Duty is king right now. And I mean, if Call of Duty comes out this year with some more heat, they're just going to be, keep in mind, we're going to have another Call of Duty game and possibly another Call of Duty game at the same time the next Battlefield comes out.
We will, without
We're
a
going to
doubt.
see we're going to see a Call of Duty game this year most likely, and we're going to see a Call of Duty game next year at some point between when they're supposed to release the next Battlefield. And I myself, I know I'm not pre-ordering the next Battlefield. I'm letting that game come out, and I'll let people who want to hand their money to DICE first.
Yeah.
Because
I can
I've
tell you
made
I'm
that
not buying
mistake.
the
Look at-
deluxe edition again.
Oh, God.
No. It's
Well, look at this. You know, if it's coming out next year, that's coming out with the new console, right? Think about all the other shooters that are going to be coming out. Titanfall,
If a Titanfall
another
comes
COD,
out. Definitely
If a
another
Titanfall
COD.
another COD.
First next-gen COD.
Yes, yeah.
Even if a new COD comes out this year,
And,
come on. It's not
And I
pushing
think there was
next-gen
another
tech.
shooter that I saw at the Xbox reveal. I forget
well, there's the
name
one
of it.
I sent you.
What was
Is
it
that
called
the one
again?
you're talking about?
Yes,
the,
yeah.
Bright Side.
Yeah,
Bright
Side,
Infinite.
Yeah, Bright Infinite.
Which I mean,
That looked-
we don't know. I'm not
Yeah, we
sure
don't know
how
if it's
that's
coming
gonna
In terms
be
of the big
competitive.
powerhouses, if like, look at this. We've got major franchises that are also coming up against this. By the way, this Battlefield will be launching in what has really become a post Battle Royale world. So not only is it competing with traditional multiplayer, it's competing with like
Right.
You're
could-
fighting
PUBG,
Apex.
You're
You're
fighting
fighting Apex. PUBG.
You're fighting
Fortnite.
Apex.
Warzone.
You're fighting. Yep, fighting all that again. Also, we're now in a world where round-based shooters are getting big again too. After with Counter-Strike, Valorant, Rainbow Six. So the FPS
I mean,
genre.
Overwatch is still popular as well. It's not for.
There's another Overwatch coming out. Like, if you look at all this stuff, this isn't simply just, okay, maybe it's like whatever. We just have a few other shooters to compete with. You got to fight with COD and Halo. It's like even if Halo comes back, then it'll be big because that's also on PC
dude,
now too.
In a perfect world, your Halo, Call of Duty, and Battlefield are sharing the top dog spot.
Yes. Yeah.
Sharing. Right now,
Mhm.
Call of Duty is dominating, and
Yeah.
I'm the biggest
they were
battle royale
winning,
guy. I know.
but they, Battlefield 5. If this was a race, Battlefield 5 tied its shoes together, fell over,
and went
then,
backwards.
and then
They
rolled
got up and
around
ran
in the
the wrong
dirt.
way.
Mhm.
I'm the biggest battle royale
Well,
guy.
fuck
I
it.
know.
Well,
And
COD.
to touch your point, to touch your point of battle royale, I mean, I don't want to say a game nowadays needs a battle royale, but look at what every game is doing. And Battlefield's, they got on the trend a little earlier. Sucked. I'm a battle royale guy. I've never even touched
Absolute
Firestorm.
mess.
Dude, I played
I played
Fallout's
it. I played it.
Fallout's battle royale.
I think devs need to
Over-
stop. If you want a
It-
battle royale, put it out there. Like,
don't
that's
force
your
it.
thing. Don't force it.
There's no need to
And-
force it.
And even COD, who's one, I do enjoy Warzone a bit. They did it in
Yeah.
a smart way, is they built it so that they can make multiplayer content out of it as well.
I honestly think Warzone is great. I haven't won
Warzone
a
is
game of it
amazing.
yet. I've struggled with Quake.
I
I think
But
it's
it is a
great.
ton of fun.
I
It's
think it
fun.
has some problems.
It's hard
but
to
it is
win, but it's
currently
fun.
my favorite of the
Let
battle
me
royales.
But
let me ask you this, guys. Should the next Battlefield have a battle royale then?
God no.
That's where I was.
I don't
going
think
with.
so. I don't
if-
think so.
I don't
It-
think so.
At this
but
point, I don't even know if
it's-
they can do a campaign in a game, let alone a battle
They-
royale.
They need. My next point was maybe focus on it on the back burners, but they need. Firestorm was a complete waste of time.
It was
They
absolute
need to
time,
focus-
and again,
This-
it wasn't even made by them, but it
Makes me
still
so
was.
upset.
It literally
They
was
need
just
to just
dropped.
not-
Like,
Sit down and focus on the game itself. Don't think about a
Yeah.
battle royale. I like what Call of Duty did. It didn't launch with a battle royale.
Nope.
I love that they gave players time to jump in.
Mhm.
They updated the game.
Mhm.
They fixed anything the players found problems with. Granted, there's still problems. It's just
Yeah.
it's a video game. But
yeah, of course.
they brought the battle
balance
royale when they were
bugs.
ready.
Yeah, they
They
put
knew
it.
it was coming, but they
Worst
put it
kept
down on us
secret.
when they were ready.
Yeah, I don't.
And I mean, honestly, there's some strategy to keeping it as a bad secret because it kept me wanting to come back. And honestly, there was a lot of hype around Warzone. There was a lot of hype around Warzone,
Mhm.
and respectfully because I really like it a lot. I
Yeah.
still think it may be clunky, it may be ugly, it may be glitchy. Personally, PUBG is my favorite battle royale. I think it's the most gritty battle royale experience, no assistance at all. But I also like Warzone's take on it with being able to be revived and the money. I love the money in Warzone.
Mhm.
I think each battle royale, if you look at the majority of them, like at least the big four now, Apex, Warzone, PUBG, and Fortnite battle royale, they all at least have something unique. Battlefield's Firestorm comes out. It's like some vehicles. It's like what? It's not like there's maybe a few tanks, but big whoop. There's like two tanks on the map. That's your big thing. Battlefield.
Leave it
is-
at this for Firestorm. Let's leave it at this. I didn't even play it, and I've played every battle royale you can play, and I didn't even touch. I played Fallout 76's battle royale before I touched Battlefields. That says enough about Firestorm. That alone says enough.
I think we've
I
said
think-
Firestorm more than DICE has acknowledged it in the past few
Yeah,
Yeah.
months.
seriously.
I think, like I said earlier, in a perfect world, you have Halo, COD, and Battlefield at the top. And right now, Battlefield needs to release something that's really going to knock the pants off of people and get them excited about it again because
So
I don't think people are going to want to play this game until they have proof that it's good.
So let me ask you guys this question again from before. And I'll ask a more specific question: is what's one thing, or maybe two, or as many as you can think of, that you would want in the next Battlefield? So as I said, for myself, I'd probably say I want. One, I don't want a battle royale. I don't want it, at least not at launch, and I don't want it to be a priority.
I don't.
I do want some type of gunsmith. I want continued customization of your character, the vehicles,
Wait, I don't know if
just
you
like Battlefield
understand
4.
what your one demand for a game is.
No, I'm saying if you have more, Eski, you can ask. Or
I say-
tell.
I don't want to interrupt you, Quaid, real quick. I just remembered. I honestly would have loved. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember the Aftermath DLC from Battlefield 3. I
Oh
was
yeah,
just
that was
thinking, the
great.
Battlefield, dude. Think about the game mode they added where you had to scavenge for weapons. There's a
was
ginormous
cool.
earthquake. The city is destroyed.
That was cool.
You have soldiers getting up, picking up crossbows, pistols.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was there. That was an amazing take on. That wasn't
That
even
was
Battle
cool.
Royale.
That
That
was
wasn't
cool.
Battle Royale. But that was an amazing way for them to implement kind of a game mode where you're scavenging for weapons.
Mhm.
It wasn't one life, but Battlefield did amazing with that. Maybe
Mhm.
maybe they need to take a Battle Royale, not to go back to that, but if they're ever going to do it, which a lot of games are now, if they're going to do a Battle Royale, they need to take it and put a Battlefield spin on it, not just, oh, everyone wants a Battle Royale, let's just take the concept of Battle Royale and throw it in. They need to put a more Battlefield spin on it and make it unique to Battlefield.
Mhm.
And I just want to say my what I want in Battlefield before
Yeah,
Esky
go ahead.
does, because mine will be
Yep.
short and simple.
Yep.
I need you need a weaponsmith, 100%. You need a weaponsmith. You need a weaponsmith. You need continued support. You need just a working game at launch, at least for the most part. No game comes perfect anymore. We all know that, but I mean, you need a great launch. You need a weapon arsenal. If you're going modern, you need to go. I mean, that's what I want as a modern game. But you need to go, take inspiration from the Battlefield 3 and 4 maps, because I think those are the best maps the Battlefield they've made. And I mean,
Mhm.
good guns, good diverse guns, a weaponsmith, and just solid gameplay. I mean, Battlefield 3 and 4, dude, were like near perfect shooters for me. If they could replicate that feeling and the just the diversity between weapons, not just a lot of fluff, just actual good content, I would like something like that.
Mhm.
And I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think in terms of, I'd say one major thing that I'd say is Battlefield has to add. I know we discussed, weapons, gunsmith, all that character, but I think what this game needs is a good. If I have one demand, I want a good ground to vehicle combat balance.
Mm.
I want that something that even as I play Battlefield 3 and 4, what I enjoy, but I feel there's definitely a bit of a. I feel that the tanks didn't feel like tanks. The aircraft felt a little too strong. If there's something I want, it's them to get these. I want an Abrams when it comes through the battlefield to feel like a powerhouse, like it does a little bit in 1 and 5. I want when aircraft are going overhead, there's proper ways to disable them on the map. Besides just infantry weapons, I want it so just because we don't have a stinger on us that we can take these things down. Maybe ones that you can find on the ground, stuff like that. Equipment to engage these things besides just the classes.
Mhm.
And as well, I want just, and I want infantry to feel like they have a place as other than just, cannon fodder for the vehicle gameplay in some instances. I want this proper balance so that each one really feels like it meshes quite well together. Because I would, again, somebody else already touched on Gunsmith. Other than that, I just want the game to feel like everything has a purpose. Because I think we all remember playing Battlefield 3 and seeing about a mile in the sky hovering a Viper with someone just firing the auto
Just
cannon.
obliterating the C flag or just covering B
Yeah.
flag for
Yep.
an turn with 50
Can't
kills.
forget that.
Yeah, or in
I
Battlefield
do
4,
also think
an attack jet just keeps strafing you.
Well,
But
I
you
think
can't you
four,
can't
they're a little more
engage it.
balanced.
No, the choppers were. I meant like some of these attack jets are flying like
Really?
outside of our. Last time we played, I was doing
Yeah,
a lot
also-
of anti-air.
I don't know if you guys are fans of this. I actually liked the changes that would happen in Battlefield 4. The maps,
Levolution.
like the flood. Well, the flooding, Levolution.
Those were neat.
I forget
Those
the
were
name
neat.
of the map that had the flood. It was the parking
Flood
garage. Was
zone?
one of the
Flood
was it
zone,
Flood
yeah.
Zone? I was a big fan of that. I liked things. I liked mid-game, Levolutions. I liked the map changing because whether it's a player-based event or just happening through, Rush. When I would also like see Rush make a big
Oh
comeback.
God.
I
If they
would
don't
like
have
to
Rush,
see
I will
an
be.
continued improvement in net coding. I know that there's only so much you can do, but
Mhm.
I would like to see the maps, dude, from 3. I mean, dude, think about the dam, the map from Battlefield 3. I forget, was it a dam that you jump off of on Rush once you
Dam.
complete the first 2
Dam of Van
objectives?
Sam
Peak.
Van Peak.
Yeah, I mean, just think about that, dude. We were young, but I don't care if you were young or old. There was no feeling like capturing those 2 objectives and just running and jumping off of that cliff. I mean,
Yeah.
it just felt like it was just I miss I miss Battlefield making me feel like that.
Mhm.
Call of Duty has never given me a feeling like that, and I hope they can return to that stage, because gaming is way better when Battlefield, Halo, and Call of Duty are all really good games, because then they compete. It's just like Fortnite did with the Battle Royales. They made PUBG better. Fortnite coming out made everyone else be better because it created a competition in the market. When you have Call of Duty dominating, Halo personally is not where I would like it to be anymore either. But you have Halo where it's at, Call of Duty dominating, and then Battlefield in last. There's no competition. If they can
Yeah.
get back to the days where they're competitive and they all want to release the best game, that would be amazing. I think that's when gaming is at its best, when the developers are competing with each other.
How about how would you guys feel about bringing 5-man squads back?
That
I think that's I
we
don't see why
need
you
it.
wouldn't have it.
Like
Okay.
going back to 4 and 5. You go back to 4 squads in Battlefield 5, and it feels like just quite annoying.
Here's a good question
yeah.
for you guys.
Such a bad
Yeah.
change.
What are we going to look at for player count on next gen?
I thought about that too.
Are we jumping
For
to
me?
100 players?
For me, and I said this before, almost about anything with Battlefield, I say the more the merrier. I'll go
I
up to
agree.
100 players. The bigger the better. I
I mean,
want more
I don't want to
destruction,
sound
more
unrealistic.
players, more vehicles, more guns.
If they're talking about next gen, if it's really true what they're saying about these consoles being
Mm-hmm.
insanely powerful, I'd love to see 64 v 64. They were playing 256 players in MAG on the PS3, which, don't get me wrong, that game was not great by any means. But they had 256 players in a game on the PlayStation 3. What is the max count we have in a shooter on the Xbox One X?
I think.
I mean, I'm not talking an MMO. I would love to see
Warzone.
Battlefield. Warzone's got 150 people. I would love to see Battlefield hit 128 people, 64 v
That would be
64.
really cool.
I think the sacrifice that we have to make is the reason that I think if we stay 64 v 64, sorry, not 64, 32 v 32, because I've played games with high player counts, and some things that have become problematic is that you get choked in, you get like just too many people in an area that it doesn't work. Now that stated, you can definitely make this work if your level design's good.
Yeah.
But I think
Has to be real.
I would rather still have 32 v 32 if we could go back to Bad Company 2's level of destruction.
I did like Bad Company 2's level
Yes.
of destruction.
I think it's,
I would like.
also
I think that
Warzone. I don't know what happens if you actually get 100 people in one location, because I noticed in the pregame lobby they separate you into 3 groups of 50, and I'm quite curious if the map can handle 150. Not saying that it's a flaw if they didn't, because it's a really smart design if they realize that there's never going to be 150 people in one location,
Interesting.
which is why their ground war is 32 v 32 still.
I think if any game can do massive 64 v 64, it is Battlefield.
Well,
Some of
here's
the maps
thing.
from Battlefield 4, dude. Or I'm sorry, Battlefield
Yeah.
3. Any Battlefield 3, 4, 1. Some
Yeah.
of the maps in those games are so massive. I would almost think you could get maybe 64 and 64 is a little too much for some of those maps, but some of those maps could easily handle 50 on 50.
Oh, for sure.
I mean,
sure.
there's no doubt in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Battlefield was the
Well,
king of
Battlefield-
large-scale warfare.
Yeah. Well, Battlefield's unique feature is there are 2 of them: gigantic maps and destruction.
And lots of players.
And
Don't forget lots of players.
And lots of guns and lots of customization and lots of vehicles. And I just want to see everything from the older Battlefields just enhanced.
Yeah, well, Battlefield at heart is a large open world conflict. Not that it can't be close quarters, because I loved playing close quarters. I loved playing team deathmatch
maps.
Yeah, were amazing.
Really good.
Those were phenomenal.
But Call of Duty dominates the CQC. See, that could be my opinion, but I mean, look at their maps. Their level design is
that makes sense.
You're not looking at large scale warfare. And they don't even do ground war. Dude, we all played ground war in Call of Duty. I think Eskimo was the only one who remotely even came close to liking it. Especially in its early stages.
I think its biggest problem, its biggest selling point was because the regular 6v6 maps are bad.
The ground war for that, I think it was terrible.
I also said, we can all acknowledge, Battlefield 3's close quarters DLC walked so Rainbow Six Siege could run.
God, it's amazing.
There was no way that it was happening without that.
I think they just need a good, solid start to their game, and just an enhancement of everything from the previous games. I think too. It's funny that it does kind of go by twos, doesn't it? You got Battlefield, Bad Company 1, and then 2, and then 3 and 4, and then Hardline was just.
Let's not count Hardline.
Yeah.
We'll leave
and then
that
you have Battlefield, World War 1, and World War 2. So, I think we'll see another modern game, or at least I hope so. Oh, another thing I want to, I just remembered, civilian vehicles. Bring back that Battlefield 2 Modern Combat stuff.
Dude, that was the best. You get in a little sedan, someone's popping out of the moonroof.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
it was
a big thing I have, or a big problem I have with a lot of games, Battlefield's guilty of this too, is like, when you have good stuff from an older game, like, I don't know.
Oh, I already know where you're going.
Grass moving in the wind, and then
100% agree.
And the later game, you don't have grass.
It's a
moving
step
in the
backwards.
Wind, it's just static. It's like, why would you not bring that over to the new game? What I mean? And I hate that. It is such a big pet peeve for me.
I agree. I think gaming making games. Obviously, I don't do professionally, but I think it's just a fair life quality. Is you always want to be moving forward, but you don't want to leave the good things in the past. And everybody does that. There's a lot of features from sequels we say, oh man, I wish that was in this. How do they not do that?
Yeah, I know.
And I mean, dude, there's a lot of things, even like you just said, like, I know something as small as civilian vehicles, that's something that is cool. I mean, it would make sense on a battlefield.
Yeah.
You're on a battlefield, you're taking
really cool.
I mean,
we had the forklift, but,
that's more gimmicky than anything, though.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
yeah.
I agree. Gaming as a whole needs to take things that people like from the old game and bring it forward and mix new things in. Even with Far Cry, for example, they take away, in Far Cry 4, there's a vehicle-to-vehicle takedown. So badass. Eskimo, I'm sure you remember it.
I do.
And you go to Far Cry 5, and they take it out. Why? You can jump from a vehicle into another vehicle of an enemy, punch them, stab them, kick them out of the car, and take over driving their vehicle. Maybe your vehicle veers off into the woods and blows up, flies into a river. Either way, it's just a really badass cinematic. Why do you take it out in the next game?
I wonder if that is because the publisher is pushing them to get the game out quicker, and they're trying to emphasize on something else other than jumping from vehicle to vehicle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's one of those features where it's like something that the fans loved. And it's like, so why take away something that's good as well? Because now you have even more vehicles in Far Cry 5 with planes and helicopters, yet we have less variety for takedown. It's almost like you're adding this stuff, but you're adding this stuff that people weren't asking for, but you're taking away the things that the people loved. And that's something that I think a lot of games are guilty of.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think
I think in general, we do see that sometimes. I agree that it's unfortunate that sometimes good mechanics don't get brought over, and I don't understand why. I think an example is sometimes also certain games don't adopt what the best feature in the genre is. For example, I don't think we should spend so much time on this because obviously we should probably just wrap up our Battlefield discussion.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that um, when one game innovates something and it's a good idea, why do not the other games just also add that? Such as Dead Island and Dying Light, all these games have the ability to pause when everyone is in the inventory in a co-op mode, but in Borderlands, that feature is not there.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems with Battlefield, we see it's like they, you know, why would they cut some of their features that were there that weren't there? Much like, honestly, that's just a thing in general. When was the last, like, in Battlefield 5, did you notice any of the buildings could be, like, collapsed? I don't think they could be in one either.
What do you mean?
I don't think so. Well,
I think
some
in,
of the
in one, you could bring some stuff heavily destroyed.
I think 5
Right.
you could bring some stuff pretty close, right?
I don't know. They reused a lot. They
You
reused.
couldn't. There was like pieces of the structure that would stay fixed to the ground, like it wouldn't crumble or fall. You
Those
get pretty
barns,
close,
I think, in
but
Panzer Storm were pretty solid.
yeah. I mean, if you look at Battlefield 4, but then you have the little animation of the building falling. But I think I forget in Battlefield Bad Company. I think it was almost the same way though.
Bad
where it
Company didn't have full destruction. Battlefield Bad
Right.
Company 2 did because they didn't have the tech for that.
So, but
Speaking of not having the tech, were you aware of why Battlefield 5 cannot do double XP?
no.
Apparently, the tech does not exist for it, despite having it in its previous title.
What
Battlefield
the-
5 is a major failure. I think, in general, maybe let's make our final points on this matter.
Yeah, it's getting pretty long here. We're
We've
almost
been over
an
an
hour and a
hour.
half.
Yeah.
I
how
think-
how about this? Let's give maybe a final remark, maybe something. If Dice could ever listen to this, what we would want them to hear.
Matt, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I just think get back to your. If I were saying this directly to Dice, they might need a good smack in the head for everything with Battlefield 5 first. But if I were to say something directly to Dice, I'd say just get back in your groove. I mean, obviously there's pressure from publishers; it can't be avoided. But look back to the things that people loved about every Battlefield, whether it be 1, 5, Modern Combat, 2, Bad Company 2, Bad
Mhm.
Company 1, Vietnam, everything. Take a look at everything that the people loved and try and put those into the game that you're trying to make now. And look at the things that people hated and try avoiding those things or fixing those things. And obviously you want to make a new experience for players, but a culmination of all the things they loved is still a new experience, especially after everything that's gone on with 5. And that's all I really have to say.
I think piggyback off that, it's like I just hope Dice can listen to the community and see what we've said, on our remarks to, Battle 5's failures and some of its successes. And hopefully, if they ever heard this, maybe they could listen to, what we wanted or what we want in the next Battlefield game, Like I said, the more the merrier for me. Gunsmith, possibly bigger maps, more destruction. But I think that's all I got for them.
I'd say, mine's short but sweet. Trust is earned, and honestly, they need to earn a lot of it. This cannot be a Battlefield 5. This cannot be a Battlefront 2 launch. This can't even be a Battlefield 4 launch.
Mm-hmm.
This next game, any hurdles it hits, will be felt tenfold because of how
Yes.
little care most people have. At this point, I think DICE needs to know that a lot's riding on the line, and with how EA acts with its chopping block,
Yeah.
they might need to act a little bit stronger. And also, we need to have they definitely need to pay those community managers a lot more,
Yes.
because if there's someone that faces the brunt of DICE's poor decisions, it's them. And well, sometimes I think they have, much like everyone, they have some bad moments. Being able to sift through all of the negativity, you know, God bless them, because they seem like some pretty good guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I also just want to leave one more remark that, I still love the Battlefield games. Battlefield 5 obviously has, you know, its downs to it, but, there's a lot of ups in the whole franchise, and I think that team has done a great job with a lot of things, they still got, um, a fun shooter that we can enjoy. Um, we had Battlefield 3, 4, Bad Company. 1 was a great game. Personally, wasn't my favorite. 5, it had its shortcomings, but it's still a good game. And I think they do work really hard. I think they just need to listen to the community more. And as you said, Esky, they could, definitely they need to build their trust up with us again, because we've definitely lost some. But I think that's all. I think that's a wrap.
I think that's a wrap as well.
That's a wrap.